this computer. I hope it doesn't mess up the whole thing, but let's see what happens. Okay, more. I'm putting you now in make host. Okay. Yes. I don't know if that'll stop the recording. It looks like it stopped the recording. No, we're still recording. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
All right, so you're good.
Okay, so
you want to share screen?
Okay, now I'm sharing the screen. Let me share the screen. Okay, can you see my screen? It should be blank.
Yes, it is.
Oh, great, terrific. So I learned this example about 40 years ago from my advisor in Moscow, David Yudin Olova Sholom, who was a world-renowned scientist and who tried at the time being to instill in us mentality of operations research. And the example goes as follows. Suppose you need to design a control system which has a key parameter, and system functionality puts two demands on the value of this parameter. First is that it needs to be less than 3. Apparently I'm sharing the wrong screen. Oh, no. Okay. And the second one, that it needs to be greater than 5. Obviously, those two demands are incompatible, and there is no such value, and seemingly such a system cannot be designed.
All right, just one second. Let me just interrupt you, Eliezer, because Eliezer wasn't here. Eliezer, we're explaining this whole union of the histachtus ha'esesfirus agnuzus lamaila, and how it can come out that they're bebechinos hischalkus lamata and not be hischalkus lamaila. Okay, how it's possible to have one thing down below and a different union up above. Anyway, David's explaining this now by way of a graph.
Right. It just came to my mind that this example might make this idea more tangible and more kind of real for us, easier to comprehend.
Yeah.
So then you realize that there is a more generalized view of this system. And in that view, this key parameter is not just one number, but is a two-dimensional vector. So it is not a value on the line, but a point on the whole plane. The system demands remain the same, but now the first constraint takes the form of being above line B, while the second takes the form of being above line A. And as we can see, there are plenty of points on the plane that satisfy both constraints. So when we project those constraints on one dimension, we get two areas which are mutually exclusive. They don't overlap. But in a higher dimensional space, we can see that there are mutually acceptable solutions. And the same thing in the Nimshal. So concepts, or in this particular case, spheres, which seem to be opposite in a lower, more simple world, in more general, higher level existence, are perfectly compatible. We can, should I continue or should I stop?
Yeah, no, continue.
Oh, okay. So yeah. We can also use this example to illustrate another union that we talked about last week, how Hillel and Shammai could take one concept that they learned from their teachers, Shammai and Naphtalian, and they understand it perfectly in all details, in all completeness. So let's say it's represented on this picture by point X. But when this concept is sort of projected on our material world, it results in two opposite and incompatible rulings, depending whether it's projected along line B, which or sphere B, which would be Gvura, or along sphere A, which would be Hesed. Because spheres, their basically purpose and reason for existence is to conduct a locus into creation, and they're basically the only normal way of achieving so. So it's a legitimate way of mapping, so to speak, Elakus into creation using either of the spheres. And that is conveyed by the statement that Ze v'ze divrei Elokim Chaim. So both of them are the words of living God. And also, we can utilize this example if we look at it from a meta level to understand a couple more theoretical concepts that we learned in this class and in other places. So what we just did, we took a simple mathematical illustration and we used it to get a better understanding of abstract concepts in Elokus. But why is it possible? It's possible for mathematical objects to have this property, this mathematical property, only because a related property exists in Elokus. Because in reality, any object, any property, any relationship of the created world is just a reflection or projection of a relevant inyan in Elokus. So Elokus is hidden from us, and because of that, it's hard for us to grasp. And that's why we have to work in reverse. We take an easy, understandable physical example, and from that, try to infer a relationship between spiritual entities. And that sheds light on two concepts, one of which we learned in the class before last, when we learned that a siluk of Or Ein Sof was done for the purpose of the Kelim and as a chesed to the created beings. And also the teaching of the Alter Rebbe from the sixth parak of Shar Ha'ichut V'Ha'imuna, where the Alter Rebbe says that Chesed and Gvura are intertwined not only in their source, but also in the lowly world, in our world. Because we can see that it requires a tremendous Gvura for the Haor of Elokus to be infused and projected into a simple mathematical example. And it also a tremendous chesed that Hashem gave us ability for our intellect to recognize this relationship, to extract relevant similarities and use them to get a glimpse of an idea of the true relationships between spiritual realities, between spiritual concepts. And that's what I wanted to share with you.
Fantastic. Very interesting. I mean, it, you know, you just see how it's all, Elokus is all one. It's projected down below and it is up above and so on. It's mamash beautiful. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Now I need to make you host again. Okay. Let me see. Okay, I need to get to a different screen. Okay. Okay.
I think you just go on the participants where it says participants.
Yes, but I need to get to the screen where I can get to the participants.
Oh, I see.
Because I see your picture. Okay, I don't see. Just, oh, I can make you host even here. Okay, now you should be the host.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. Okay. So I'm going to share screen now. Stop the other screen sharing, and I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, I stop. Okay, yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
No, now I learned, thanks to you, I learned how to do something in Zoom. Yes.
It's a pretty useful tool.
Yes.
All right. So last time when we were learning, we skipped over this section over here that starts with L'choira. We skipped over that and we didn't finish the last chapter. Now, why did we skip over it? Because it's really a pilpul in this whole inyan of that we just spoke about, the whole inyan of the achdus of the spheroids in the Esses Spheroids Agnuzois, and how that relates to Matan Torah, as we will see. Let's just start just a little bit before, a couple of lines before the L'chaira. Ukmo Kain. So he's talking about that the spheroids in the Esses Spheroids Agnuzois, Betachis Aruchnius, Betachis Azachus. In other words, absolutely pure without any admixture of anything else or whatever it is. They're the clarity and the purity, so to speak, of the spheroids are such that they can shoichnim, as it says over here, valkein shoichnim kulam yachad, and therefore they can all be together. As David just explained it, lamaila, everything is together, and it's not a stira one to the other. You can have two opposite inyonim and they're not a stira, right? Kmokein in yuvan, and so too we can it could be understood. Beinyana esas spherois. When they come down below the line, when the one's less than 3, one's more than 5, one's bechinas chesed, one's bechinas gvura, muvdalim zeh mizeh. That's when there are muvdal. That's when there's a separation between them. Chesed is chesed, gvura is gvura. Hillel is hillel, shama shama. Mikol makom bo'eda, including b'orein sof baruch hu, when they're in the orein sof, harim bechinas adakus v'aruknis lain kates. They're on a much higher madrega, and therefore they're able to be shoichnim yachad. They can be together over there, not be a stira one to the other. Mikamo shehen achakach. They're on a completely different level than the way they are afterwards. Lachein ein shum ischalkos, ein sham ischalkos kol bechinu b'fnei atzma, and therefore there's no division and separation between them, so that each one is on its own. Adarabah, they can be together. Ki including kulam ke'echad. All of them are klulim in one klal. Now this is the pilpul is based on this, what we're going to say over here. So in other words, with the inyan of Matan Torah, there was also mizgale, the inyan of koiches ha'atzmiyim of the nefesh. At the same time, there was that inyan. As a result of Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, in other words, his galus of Etzem Elokus. Therefore, there was also his galus of the koiches ha'atzmiyim of the neshama. And we're going to explain this a little bit more. And therefore, when there was the his galus koiches ha'atzmiyim, hayuroimus hanishma v'shemis hanire. Therefore, we could, like it says, kol ha'am roimus hakoilos. So you can understand that Bepshitu is kolam roimus hakoilos. In other words, we experienced it as if it was re'iyah, right? In other words, we experienced the koilos with such his amsus, with such usually the inyan of kol, which is the inyan of shmiya, is mirachoik, right? Whereas the inyan of re'iyah is mikaroif. Re'iyah is close, and shmiya, hearing things, is far away. Hearing is like secondhand information. You hear about it, you don't hear the thing itself. Yeah, when you hear far away a hammer hitting a bucket or whatever it is far away, you can assume what it is, but you didn't actually see that it was a hammer hitting a bucket. It could actually be in a shot. It could have been something else. Who knows, right? But you make certain assumptions, and it's the bechinas richuk, bechinas of shmiya. But what was der bederek kal bechinas shmiya came in Matan Torah, the inyan of re'iyah. In other words, we could actually experience it as if it was in front of us. And that means that there was no ischalkus of shmiya, because what was usually bechinas shmiya was now bechinas re'iyah. However, this is where the pilpul starts. Why? This whole concept that we just explained, that shoym nisanira ve'roim esanishma, is a little bit more, or maybe even much more, than the whole inyan of his achdus and his arvus of the spheres as esespheres agnuzes. The taruvos, the mixture of the spheres lamala in the esespheres agnuzes. This inyan of Riyah and Shmiya that we said is more than that. Why? He's going to explain. Shahare kol koyach poel pula hofchis, because here at the time of Matan Torah, the koyach of Shmiya and the koyach of Re'iyah had an opposite effect. They had an opposite effect. Re'iyah experienced Shmiya, and Shmiya experienced Re'iyah. Okay, so how's that a theory? He's going to explain. When we were talking about the Inyan of the accessories like Nuzois, we were saying that these arvus, the Inyan is arvus hurak mashe shoichnim yachad. We said that they weren't a steer to one another. They lived together. It's like, so to speak, lahavdil Esav living with Yaakov, right, and Yaakov living with Esav when there was no steerer. And they're not nikar one from the other. In other words, lamaila chochma, chesed is chesed and gvura is gvura, but they're not a steer one to another. But you can't understand gvura from chesed, and you can't understand chesed from gvura. Why? Because chesed is chesed, and the essence is like nuzois, and gvura is gvura. It's just that because they don't have the tziur of chesed and gvura the way they are down lamata, the less than 3 and the more than 5 or whatever, because they don't have that siur, so they're not a stira to one another. But in essence, they still do different things. It's just that they're not a stira lamaila. Okay, so this is different from what we're saying now about Re'iyah and Shmiya, because now you had a switching around of Shmiya and Re'iyah. So that was B'derech Kla was Shmiya was now Re'iyah. What was B'derech Kla Re'iyah was now Shmiya. He's going to explain a little bit more. Let's see. So again, right? You couldn't recognize the difference between them, and you couldn't recognize one from the other because they didn't have a tziyur. Each one was what it was. Chesed was chesed, and gvura was gvura. Even in the accessories like Nuzois. V'kan, at the time of Matan Torah, in the koyches hanefesh, v'kan hare koyach re'iyah, Pa'al Pu'ula Hovchis. It's not that it did the Pu'ula of Chesed. It's not that it did the Pu'ula of Chesed and it wasn't a steer to Gvura. It did the Pu'ula of Gvura. And the Koyach of Gvura did the Pu'ula of Chesed. In other words, Re'iyah did the job of Shmiya and Shmiya did the job of Re'iyah. Now, how could that be? That's l'chayra, not what we said when we were talking about the inyonim of the spheros as they were l'mayla. You could say that that's because when he says pshitas, he means the hafshota. The hafshota of the tzir and hagbola, because there's no tzir and there's no hagbola over there. Therefore, they could do the opposite inyan. Because after all, there was riyah and there was shmiyah. After that, they did the different, the opposite inyan to what they were used to. Riyah did shmiyah and shmiyah did riyah. So v'hayama koyches atzmiyim the koyach hariyah koyach shmiya. In the koyches atzmiyim there was still koyach hariyah and koyach shmiya. Mashariyah toifes davagashmi. He's not going to be happy with this answer. He's saying maybe you could say it like this, but it's not. It's only a havamina. Mashariyah toifes davagashmi. The fact that riyah b'derech klal is toifes davagashmi. What do we see? We see the gashmis of the Indian. V'shmiya toifes davaruchni. And Shmiya, you don't see the thing itself, but you hear about it. You hear the noise from the hammer hitting the bucket or whatever it is, right? The hammer hitting the bell. So you hear it and you understand what it is, but you didn't see the etzem maisa. So Shmiya is Tavez Adavar Ruchni. Harazeh Hatziu Bahim. That's the tziyur, the fact that Shmiya is Tavez Ruchni and Re'iyah is Tavez Gashmi. That's their tziyur. So when the koiches are in a state of hafshota, in other words, in a state of abstraction from their normal kalim that they see with the eyes, the shmiya with the ears and re'iyah with the eyes, so to speak. When they're bebchinas hafshota from that, when we talk about in the koiches and nefesh themselves, so it's possible. Ubepshitas koiches atzmiyim, when they're bebchinas atzmiyus, hayu roinis hanishma, then they could. Because there was no tzir, therefore roinas anishma. But he's not happy with it. It's hard to say that this is the pshat, that they just simply because they didn't have a tzir, therefore they could do the opposite pu'ula. Kasha lo mekain. Why? Shehare muhus inyan ha're'i v'shmiya mashu mekulochim be'etzem muhusam The fact that Shmiya and Re'iyah are different, and they're different in their mahus, not just different in the tziyur, but they're different in the mahus. Why they're different in the mahus, he explains. She'Re'iyah toifes mahus ve'etzem adavar, because Re'iyah sees the thing itself. With Shmiya toifes rach metzius adavar, only that the thing is, but not what it is. It doesn't see the thing itself. It hears the effects of the thing, right? In other words, the stick hitting the bell, and then you hear the bell, you understand what must have happened, right? But with Re'iyah, you actually see the thing itself. You see the thing b'poel mamish. It's not a davar ruchni. That's a davar gashmi that you saw. Okay, so he has to find another explanation. These koiches, when they come into Kelim, in other words, the koich Riyah and koich Shmiya, when they come into Kelim, in other words, Shmiya in the ears and Riyah in the eyes, Shalahem Riyah tofes davar gashmi. The Riyah sees a physical thing, dafka, ushmiya davar ruchni, dafka. Because this is what they're all about. That's the mahus of Shmiya. It's to see a davar ruchni, to experience the davar ruchni. Masha ein kein Riyah sees a davar gashmi. זהו לפי שמהוס העצמי שלהם, שראייה תופס מהוס הדבר, על כן תופס דבר גשמי. ליושב בזה הוא תפיס המהוס, ושמיע תופס דבר רוחמי, שהוא עניין המציאס. So that's the way it works with Shmiya and Re'iyah. Re'iyah is toifes the mahus, and therefore it's shaykh to actually experiencing the thing itself. Masha Enkein Shmiya is only toifes the metzius of something, and therefore it's only toifes the metzi and it's toifes the metzius thereof, and it's bebechinas Shmiya, not bebechinas Re'iyah. V'nimtza. Therefore, the difference between Shmiya and Re'iyah, the fact that they're mischalkim one from the other, there's a difference between them. There's a difference in the mahus, so it doesn't seem to stim with what we were saying. Because why? Because at the time that the Torah was given, they saw what was normally heard. So how exactly does it work? Like how could something which its whole inyan is that it's toifas hamahus is now toifas hametzias, and something which was only toifas hametzias is now toifas hamahus? It doesn't seem to work when we're talking about the koiches hanefesh to the same extent as we could say it with the spheroids themselves. Okay, yeah, he kind of leaves it unresolved a little bit, but let's go on a few lines more. The kipshutoi shiraos hakoilois harizeh rak b'hatziyur. If you want to explain this in Bepshitas, and not the way we explained it before, that this was the hisarvus of the koiches hanefesh l'mayla, just like the hisarvus of the spherois hagnuzas, of the esser spherois hagnuzas. If you want to explain it the way we explained it, then we're going to have a problem dealing with the fact that they sort of changed their positions, which is not true of the esser spherois hagnuzas. Chesed still remains chesed, and gvura still remains gvura in esser spherois hagnuzas. They don't swap their positions. It's not that all of a sudden gvura becomes the mashpia and chesed becomes the metzamtzem. That doesn't happen, right? There, it's just that they don't bother each other. They're there together and they work together, but they don't bother each other, right? But here in the nefesh, they were dachliku v'duchtayu. They completely swap positions. Shmiya hears, experiences the mahus, and Re'iyah experiences the metzius. Like, how does that happen? Rafia now, but according to what we explained, this is in the essence of the koiches, not just in the tziyur of the koiches, not in the chitzonius, but in the pnimius of koiches is what happened. Now, how did that happen? The koiches got swapped around. Now, how does this happen exactly? How do we explain it? What would be the advantage of seeing the metzius? We can understand that there's an advantage in hearing the mahus. Yes, what was normally only toifes metzius is now toifes the mahus. But what's the mila of Re'iyah now being toifes metzius? L'chayr, being Teves Mahus is a much higher inyan. Like, why then is it, because Chazal say, it's not only Shomim Nesanire, but also Roim Esanishma. But Adarabah, that's the example that's brought in the Roim Esakoilos. Is Roim Esanishma. That's what's actually in the Pasuk, right? Roim Esakoilos. So how does this exactly stim? So he's going to go on another. Again, there's all a pupil, and there's not really a clear resolution of this inyan. So elsewhere it's explained that this inyan of royen sanishma, the b'chinas haruchnias hamahabes hayesh. What does it mean, royen sanishma? You can experience the ruchnias that's mahaba the yesh, but there are klal inyan of shmiya is toifes the yesh, right? But when it was royen sanishma, we seen the ruchnias that's mahaba hayesh. In other words, the ayin that's mahaba the yesh. That's what's the inyan of royin. So in other words, the royin by Matan Torah was on a much higher madrega than b'derech klal royin and b'derech klal shoymi. Okay, so again, shu etzleinu berichuk b'derech klal, that inyan of the ruchnias and mahabes hayesh, it's far from us, and therefore that ruchnias that's mahaba the yesh is b'derech klal b'chinas shmiya. That's what came b'chinas re'iyah. So this is one possible solution to our problem. Again, let's just read it again. The b'chinas haruchnias hamahaves hayesh shu etzleinu berichuk b'derech klal it's only b'chinas shmiya. Hainu rak b'chinas shmiya v'hasoga mirachoik. That was hayal be'etzlam b'chinas riyah mikaroiv. They experienced that from close up, so to speak. Umamela, and therefore shomin is anira. What was normally nira was now nishma. Shomin is anira. What does it mean? Hainu hayesh agashmi. The yesh itself. Hayai etzlam b'china shmiya. The yesh itself became like a distant thing. They didn't experience the yesh anymore as it's usually experienced down in this world. They experienced the yesh in a very, very different way. Mirachoik, not mikarev. Hayai etzlam b'china shmiya mirachoik. Kikshenigla haruchnias nizbatel hayesh. The yesh became so bottled because of the ayin hamahavas the yesh that they experienced, that they saw. Therefore, the yesh itself became a b'china shmiya. It was like became a distant kind of a thing. Yesh became bottle. V'hainu shirau mahus ha'ayin ha'eloki. What they saw was the ayin eloki hamahava that creates the yesh. Zeu amitus adavar. The yesh itself was not the emes of the thing. The ayin hamahava shayesh is the emes inya. And the Gashmias was only b'china shmiya. We only sort of kilu. Oh yeah, we heard about Gashmias. Yeah, we heard about such a thing, but it wasn't for them at that point in time. The reality was the ayin hamahaves hayesh. So therefore, it was only shmiyas hamatzius. Because the truth is that the matzius around us is not a matzius amiti. Why is it not a Metzius Emiti? Because it's not what it looks like. It's the ikar of the yesh is the ayin hamahavis hayesh. We don't see the ayin, and therefore we toiface the yesh. But b'derech ha'emes, the inyan of the ayin hamahavis hayesh, that's the emes. Okay. So in kain ein ze his chalfus hakoichus, and therefore you would have to say, according to the second explanation that we just gave, there was actually, it's not that Shmiya took now the place of Re'iyah and Re'iyah took the place of Shmiya. It's that each one did its own thing, but that the Gashmias was changed. But derech klal roimus agashmias. Now we roimus ayin hamahaves agashmias. Derech klal agashmias, the ruchnias were b'chinas Shmiya. Now the ruchnias came b'chinas Re'iyah and the Gashmias came b'chinas Shmiya, mirachoik. Okay, as he just explained. So therefore, it's not his chalkus hakoichois, and therefore we would have to explain according to the way we just explained it, in order not to come to this problem that it seems that Matan Torah was much more than what happens in the SS3 Sagnuzis. It seems to be, this explanation that we just gave seems to be what the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, in Sharicha V'Amuna, if we could see If the eye was given permission to see, we would see the ayin hamahaves hayesha, not just the yesh itself. As is explained on the Inyan in Pirkei Avos, Ezu Chacham Haroyes HaNoilad. What does it mean? Haroyes HaNoilad. But there are clients explain up Pshat that he sees what's going to be in the future, right? He sees HaNoilad that from any situation he understands where that's going to lead to in the future. But that's not the Pshat that we're giving over here. Ezu Chacham Haroyes HaNoilad is the Inyan of we seeing where the thing was born from. In other words, Es Ha'ayin Hamahaves Hayesh. Yeah, as a noilad me'ayin leyesh. We're seeing the ayin which gives rise to the yesh. Okay. But then we're not talking about the neshama as it is in the goof, but the neshama before it becomes melubish in the goof. So what happened in Matan Torah may have been this, but then we may be able to explain it in this way, but it's not so pashut, right? It's not so pashut because l'chayra, everything that we just said now, that to resolve this inyan is the inyan the neshama before it's melubish in the goof. Because how do you take the koach hashmiya in your ear and actually see things through your ear? Like that's the question that we're asking, right? When it's melubish in the goof, it's not a portion. And then when it's in the goof, you don't have his arbus hakoich. The koich is not muravim zebazeh, right? When it's in the goof, the koiches are completely mechulakim. They're shmiya in the oizen and there's re'iyah in the eye, and you don't have it mixed up, so to speak. And therefore we could say, according to what we said before, the Roinas Hanishma, when Bnei Israel saw Hakoilois, Bnei Israel Roimas Hakoilois, Roimas Hanishma, who says Chachus Bekoach Hashmiya. We could say perhaps that this Inyan is the Chidush, with the Iker Chidush was in Koach Hashmiya. In other words, what does it mean that the Chiddush was in Koach Hashmiya? It's not that Re'iyah went away or that now Re'iyah took the place of Shmiya. No, Shmiya was lifted up to a place of Re'iyah. In other words, the emes that we heard was so emesdik that it was as if we saw it mamish, right? But bechinas hasogas hamahus, just like Re'iyah, hasogas hamahus. V'hainu lo bechinas Re'iyah bilvad. Not only that they would have seen it, but they grasped through Shmiya Mahus Adavar. As it says in the future, and he's going to explain it later on in one of the much later prokim in Ayin Beis and Hemshech. In any event, for Tzarech Loimar, we'd have to say the Matan Torah Hayaginu B'chinas Atzmus Ein Sof Shel Ma'ala Gam Me'eses Tziris HaGnuzois. We would have to say that the whole reason, the way we explain it, Remes Anishma and so on and so forth, Shemes Anira, is because there's his galus of Elokus that transcended the Eses Tziris HaGnuzois, and therefore the Eses Tziris HaGnuz is not a good paradigm for the Inyan of Roem Es Anishma. Right? It's not a good explanation for it. Because Afal that in Eses Tziris HaGnuzos, everything is B'Yisachlus, the Pshitus, the Inyan of, or Bapashtus rather, the Inyan of Roim Es Hanishma, Cholam Roim Es HaKoilois, was a higher Inyan than the Eses Tziris HaGnuzos. It was actually his Chalfus HaKoichos. All right. And we would have to say that this is the Inyan of Lasid Lavoy, that it's the Inyan Shai Techias HaMesim. And therefore there will be his kalus of a koiches, even lamaila and be eses gnudois, talter mechayehu, which he obviously explains elsewhere, and that's the end of. Oh no, I'm sorry, it goes on to here. The Riyah and the ear of the Neshama before he slaps in the goof. In other words, in the koichas ha'atzmim of the nefesh, before it's in the goof. There we would say that the inyan Riyah and Shmiya is both in the inyanim of mahus and not in the inyan of metzias. There's Riyah samahus and there's asogas samahus. Both of them in the inyan of mahus. Kamo hasogas and neshomas began Eden, like the neshomas in Gan Eden are masig the or roimus amahus masigimus amahus. In other words, the inner shmiya is to be masik, to understand the Indian of the mahus. Riyas amahus is to experience it, and hasogas amahus is to understand it. So both of these inyonim are bebechinas mahus, and not that shmiya is shaykh to metzius. Okay, that's the way he's explaining it now. He knows or the hishtalshalus, and that can still be inside the hishtalshalus. In other words, in the neshama shebaguf, behind ba'ora elokish shebabechinas lapshus ba'olam. It's possible to grasp this inyan as elokus is melubash in oilemis, and not as it is in the neshama before it came down. Afilu when the neshama is down below in the goof. But Atzilus yesh loimer say rak ha'or ma'oris da Atzilus v'lo be'etzem ha'or ma'ach sheyotov nifradim ba'kelim. In Atzilus it would be the etzem of the or of Atzilus, and not the as the or came down and was mechaya kelim and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's all the Maimer Hamuzgar as mamash a pupil, and there's we could go over it for another couple of weeks to really understand it clearly, but it is a Maimer Hamuzgar. So let's just continue with the Maimer. We did this last week, but just to finish it off so that we understand where we're going to now and what we're up against here. About etzema or b'derech klal ba'orein sof shelamalemi hislapshus ba'olemis. That in the Or Ein Sof, which is Lamalam Islapshus Ba'olemis, who b'chinas Yediyas HaMetzias Levad, generally is, we only know that it is, but we don't know what it is. We have no real conception of what it is, but b'chinas Mahus. We know what the Metzias is of the Or Ein Sof. Before it becomes Melubish in the Oilemis, we know that it exists, but we don't know what it is. The Inyan Roin es Hanishma, who Riyas HaMahus Etzema Or. But with the time in Matan Torah, we were able to grasp and see the inyan of Mahus Etzema Or, to experience as if we were seeing. In other words, Shasoga, he Bechinas Hasogas Mahus. The Hasoga was we were able to grasp both of them in the Mahus. We were able to grasp the Mahus, and we were able to experience the Mahus of Elokus. Okay. That is the explanation of Roimis Hanishma, etc. When his arvus and his arvus of the koiches and the nefesh, who shekol koich and a mugdab mahusai, that the koiches and the nefesh were not limited each to its own particular inyan dafka, v'hukin in achlifu duchtayu, and therefore it's like achlifu duchtayu, that re'iyah can do the avoid of shmiya, and shmiya can do the avoid of re'iyah, as we explained. Yeah, and that's because of their pshitus in their makor. They don't have a tziyur, and therefore they can take the opposite quality. And therefore we would have to say that it's more than simply the his achtus of the spheres agnuzois. It must be on a higher level afilu than the inyan of the eses spheres agnuzois. In other words, it has to be in the Or Ein Sof even before the eses spheres agnuzois, which, as we said before, the inyan of the Eses Firis HaGnuzois is the Or HaShaykh LaOilemis. The Eses Firis HaGnuzois are in the Or HaShaykh LaOilemis, and we would have to say that this inyan of the Roimes HaKoilois, etc., Roimes HaNishma, Vashomis HaNire, has to be in the Madrega that's Lamalimi Eses Firis HaGnuzois. In other words, Lamalimi Or HaShaykh LaOilemis. It has to be in the Or Shebegilu La'atzmoi. We would have to say that it's over there that this actually took place. That is the inyan. Okay, we did the kitzur last time. Yeah, maybe it's good to do it again. Okay, so bir inyan hina esas firis gnuzos and bechinis iruvis achtus. We explained that the esas firis gnuzois are, there's a certain unity about them, and there's an iruv. In other words, they mix together, and they're not everyone's mugdar in their own limitations. Even though they are opposite, chesed is chesed and gvura is gvura, even though they're opposite, even in the muhus, the atzmius inyan is not behis galus, and therefore it's not. There's no stereo one to the other. Therefore, we can't see the opposite qualities in all of them. Because they're not mitzius, only and therefore they're able to be unified one with the other. Like seichel, which is mufshat, abstract seichel. As we said Hillel and Shammai received from the same teacher who understood the Inyan in such a way that it could come down in two different ways, but Bechinas Hillel and Bechinas Shammai, right? The Kamo Seichel Hiyuli, as David explained it very nicely today, this is the Inyan Seichel Hiyuli. There's points above the line, so to speak, where they both answer and they resolve the problem on a higher plane of existence. Koyach Hiyuli, Seichel Hiyuli. כמו כויכס עצמיים הכלולים בעצם הנפש. וזהו דמם תורה היורואים הנשמע, we saw the nishma, what is normally nishma, היינו שהיה ראי במהוס הרוחני. They saw the עצם עניין הרוחניus, in other words, the עין המהווה היש, ושיימינס הנראה, היינו הסוגס המהוס. They were able to understand, to grasp intellectually the inyan of the mahus, which is the inyan of Shmiya. Okay. Now we're getting back to our mimer. To the inyonim of Parshas Shlach, and there were a number of questions that he asked over there. The first question that he asked is, what is this inyan of Shlichus that Moshe Rabbeinu sent Meraglim? He said, if it was B'derech HaTeva, that to go and understand how to conquer the place, then we would understand why he said Meraglim. But since the whole inyan of the conquering of Eretz Yisrael was not B'derech HaTeva, so what was the necessity for the inyan of Shlichus? Also, why does it say the Loshen Vayasuru Es Haaretz, right? That he sent them Vayasuru Es Haaretz, they had to go spy out the land. Why didn't it just use the regular word Leragel Es Haaretz, right? To spy out the land, Leragel, Meraglim, as we see later with the Meraglim that Yeshua sent. They're called Meraglim. And Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sent them, there were three things that they had to look at. One was the people, which it says Uri'isem es haaretz mahi, and he explained that haaretz doesn't mean the haaretz because the next posuk also says haaretz, the land. This meant the people, to look at the people of the land. So the first thing you have to do is look at the people, right? Who are these people? What are they all about? And Rashi explains the same way. The second is that the haaretz itself is what they have to see. They have to also spy out the land, right? What's this inyan of the land? And the third thing they had to do is Ma'arim, right? What are these cities? What are the cities all about? And by all of them, it says Loshan Ma, right? Ma'arim, Ma'anash, Ma'aretz, and so on. Like, what are these, what is the term, why is the term Ma mentioned there? Okay, so now he's going to explain all of these inyanim. V'hine b'Torah yesh midbar, yishuv v'sadeh. In Torah you find, now this bracket over here seems to be here for some strange reason. It's probably just a misprint, but the Rebbe notes that there's a bracket over here, and it doesn't actually end. If you have a look at the end, it doesn't end with a bracket. So it doesn't belong here. In any event, in the Torah there's an in of a midbar, desert, or wasteland, whatever, yishuv, settled cities, and so on, v'sadeh, and places of agriculture, fields. We know that the Torah is called the Zois HaTorah Adam. There's a passage that says Zois HaTorah Adam, that the Torah itself is compared to Adam, right? The pasuk. But you do the Torah bichlal b'chinas tziur Adam. K'moshe kasu b'zois Torah. He brings the pasuk. He says zois Torah Adam, etc. V'hainu she'Torah hi b'chinas pnimi. The Torah itself is the inyan of pnimi, meaning to say we're not talking about b'chinas makifim. We're talking about b'derech klal. The inyan of Adam, tziur Adam, is in the or pnimi, not in the or makif. In the or is makifim. It's the inyan of igulim. It's not the inyan of or pnimi, which is b'tziur Adam. Okay, in other words, what's Tziyur Adam? There's a Rosh, there's a Toch, there's a Sof, a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a right side, there's a left side, and so on and so forth. But in the Or Makif, it's not like that. The Or Makif is only Pnimi and Chitzoin. There's no inyan of Tziyur in the Or. Okay, he's going to explain. Shezeu Hefresh Bein Torah LeMitzvahs. This is one of the differences between Torah and Mitzvahs. That Torah is called Adam. It has a Tziyur Adam, right? It's the Or Pnimi. That's the aspect of makif. But Torah bechinas chochma, bechinas or pnimi, whereas Torah is or pnimi. Ve'inin bechinas hamidbar shebeTorah. What's the in the midbar? Desert in the Torah. Yesh lo yamar shezehu haTorah kamo sheyiv bebechinas esesvis agnuzois. It's called midbar because there's no access to it. You can't live there. It's in esesvis agnuzois. So the Torah, as it is, bechinas esesvis agnuzois, there's no ischalkus. Can't be understood. There's no Hillel and Shammai. It's all one Inyan. It's bechinas eses v'lis agnuz. Everything is mixed together, and it's not brought down into poil. The meyois on eses v'rois that even though there are taka eses v'rois there, it's not the pshitus of Ein Sof. Mikom makom hareheim lo bechinas metzius. They're not bechinas metzius, but lo bechinas ischalkus. So there's no ches, there's no gvura, there's no right, there's no wrong. In the Torah, the way it is up in eses v'lis agnuzos, you don't have this ischalkus. Even in Adam, you have this aspect of lo Adam. In other words, apalpi that the Torah is b'derech klal bechinas Adam, so that you have the right side Hillel, you have the left side Shammai, you have the Rosh, you have the Regel, and so on and so forth. That's b'derech klal. But you also have in the Indian of Adam bechinas lo Adam, right? Ki lo Adam hu. That in of lo Adam, that's the way the Torah is in the Eses V'lis Agnuzos. And he's going to explain what those are. This is the deeper secrets of the Torah, the Razin Doraisa, that this is Lamalimi Hasoga, and that's the way it is in the Eses V'lis Agnuzos, that we can't grasp it. Why? Because there's no tzir in the spheroids, it's only a tzir in the oirois. There's no kalim over there to be able to grasp. That's the Indian of Eses V'lis Agnuzos. It's the tzir of the oil, not kalim. And therefore, very, very hard to understand the Torah as it is in that Bechina. Except that it was brought down on by the Baal Shem Tov and on Yutes Kislev, v'chulu, v'chulu. Va'ika, Bechinas Razin, the Razin Shabbat and more than just the secrets of the Torah, it's the secrets of the Torah that we're talking about, that those are Bechinas Eses V'lis Agnuzos. And these will only actually be revealed properly in the time of Mashiach, but nevertheless, they're up there in the Eses V'lis Agnuzos right now. You don't have this Inyan of his galus atik. You don't have the Inyan of these spheroids being revealed. What's his galus atik? Hu bebina hasoga, bahasoga. In other words, the tainug of Torah is when there's an Inyan revealed in the Torah. That's when the Inyan of chidush, and that's what lights up. What does it say? Tzahivu panav the Rabbi Abohu the matzah tosefta chadata. Right, his face lit up because he found a new Tosefta that he didn't know about or that nobody knew about. He found this new Tosefta, and Tzivu Panav, his face lit up, and he was Bechina Simcha Gedoyla. That's the in of Bina, Hasoga, Tainug, and so on. But in the Eses V'lis Agnuzos, you don't have that. It's not. It's Razin Doraisa. V'Harazin Doraisa Shein Lamalmi Get Hasoga Ein Bazeh Bechinas Tainug. In the Razin of Torah, there's not the aspect of Tainug. V'zeu amitis bechinas tamei Torah she's galol asid. This is the Indian of the tamei Torah that will be revealed lasid lava by Mashiach. Bechinas tainug abilti murgash. It's tainug which doesn't come into hergesh. It's tainug lamalami hergesh. In other words, the etzem Indian of tainug was out of tziyu. That's what the neshama is going to experience lasid lava. Bechinas hasogas amhus, and we will grasp it. We'll be able to understand what it's all about lasid lava. How that exactly will happen, we'll have to wait and see. So that's the inner midbar Shabbat the Razin, the Raisa. Yishuv Shabbat Torah. What's the inner of Yishuv? The settled cities in the Torah. That's the Elokus that can be grasped. That's the Torah as it can be understood in Yediyah and Hasoga. We know the Torah. There's reasons for things, and there's a geschmack in it, and so on. And L'chayra, he's talking here about the Indian of Nigla Shabbat Torah. He doesn't say it here explicitly, but I think he might say it later on. I don't remember. But this is the Indian of L'choyer and Nigla B'Torah, that you can understand, that you can understand the Sforas and what the Psak Din is, and so on and so forth. It's clear, right? It takes maybe time and effort to uncover it, but nevertheless, it's there. It's not Razin the Raisa, which are Lamana Mi Hasoga. So that's the Indian of Yishuv. V'sadeh hu she'em as a Yishuv Adam, it's not where people live. Mikom makom mihila tzorech haYishuv, but the fields are there for the sake of the Yishuv. B'chol Yishuv yichashev, and therefore they're going to be considered part of the Yishuv. In other words, since the fields are what feed the cities, right? The food comes from the fields. Therefore, they're considered sort of part of the cities, part of the Yishuv. We could say we could say that the fields are the inner kavonas mitzvahs. So we have Rozin the Raisa Pnimius HaTorah, that's Bechinas Midbar, where no man can live. Then you have the Indian of Yishuv, where everybody lives, that's the Indian of Nigla Shabbatayra. And then you have the Indian of Kavonas HaMitzvahs, that's the Indian of Sadeh. Okay, why is this important? We'll see soon. יש להם שהוא עניין כוונס המצוות. אם יהיה שזהו גם כן הסוגה, מכל מקום אין זה כמו ידיעס התורה שעיקר הסוגה. It's not like knowing nigla of Torah. אף על פי that you know the Indian of the mitzvahs and the tamei mitzvahs, which are a little bit more mufshat and not, because the mitzvahs themselves are not an Indian sichli, they're not an Indian of logic. It's Ratzonah shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not Chochmosai. There is an inner chokhmah in explaining some of the mitzvahs that can be explained, but nevertheless, it's bechinas sada, it's not bechinas ir, or yishuv rather. Or bechinas midbar shebatayra, zeu bechinas sheba ba'asi b'poel mamish, mibli sheyitz ba'atam v'tanu v'rak lasas returning his baruch. So when we're talking about in terms of avodah, what's the inyan of midbar in Torah? That's the inyan of accepting the Ratan of Hashem without chakiros. Right, I'm going to do it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, and that's it. I don't ask questions. There's a very interesting letter from the Rebbe Rashab to the Frierdiker Rebbe, where the Frierdiker Rebbe actually asked the question, what's the Mahus Inyan HaChasidus? And the Rebbe Rashab replies to him rather sharply, and he says that I never heard this question from anybody. I certainly didn't hear it from the Rebbeim, and I feel not from Chasidim. And Chasidus is Torah's Elokim that we receive from the Alter Rebbe, from the Baal Shem Tov, and so on. What do you have to start making chakiros, right? That's what he means over here with the midbar shabbat Torah. You accept it the way it is. You don't have to start making chakiros. Who said it and why did he say it? And this is the Eibish's Torah and finished, right? And we makabel it k'moy shehu. Lasois, Ritzoinoi, and Zeuzeh, right? That's the inner midbar when it comes to avodah. Zeh shekasov Hachofetz LaHashem. This is talking about the story with Shaul, when Shmuel sent Shaul to destroy Amalek, and he brought back some of the sheep, right? And when Shmuel says to him, what are these sheep over here? You were supposed to destroy everything. What are the sheep? He said, no, because some of the people wanted to make sacrifices. So Shmuel says to him, Hachofetz LaHashem, is this what Hashem wants, that he makes sacrifices against what he told you to do? You're bringing them for offerings instead of doing what he told you to do. This is the time for Kabbalah's all. It's not the time for time, for all kinds of reasons. Kishmoa b'kol Hashem, b'kum b'poel mamish, bli tam, mizevach toiv. Shmoa b'kol Hashem is better than the fattest korban that you could possibly bring, right? To listen to what the Eibush has told you to do, that's much more important than bringing carbonas, which he didn't ask you to bring in this particular case. In any event, that is the inyan of so the inyan of midbar is kabbalas all, mamish kabbalas all, without looking for reasons. In bechinas Eretz Canaan, and that's why the land of Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Canaan. Not because it belonged to Canaan, Chas v'Sholom, or Canaan was any Metzias over there. No, it's called Eretz Canaan, Stam, Hu Inyan Midbar. That's the Inyan of Midbar. Not that Eretz Canaan was a Midbar, but it's called Eretz Canaan for a specific reason. Benikna Eretz Canaan, Shemezeh Ba, Bechinis HaKniya Ba'avoida Blitam. It's the Inyan of Kniya, it's the Inyan of subjugating yourself to the Eibishter without having to have a reason for doing it. It's not that if there's reasons we shouldn't learn them. No, if there's reasons you learn them, but we're not doing it because of the reasons. The reasons are extra, so to speak. The reasons you have to learn is part of the Torah itself. But the reason that why we're doing it is because the Abishai told us to do it, not because there's a good reason for it. There's logic and it makes sense and so on and so forth. So avoidably time. That's why it's called Eretz Canaan, Eretz Kniya, right? Eretz of self-subjugation to the Abishai. So that's why it's called Eretz Canaan. And this is the advantage of mitzvahs ma'asiyos over everything else. Allah Torah. Because in this way we can be mamshich from a much higher madrega, atzmus ein sof. Shalamanu b'chinas giloi. Giloi of the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes b'chinas tamei Torah, in the chokhmah of Torah. But these inyonim of mitzvahs ma'asiyos, there's no reason for them per se. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to do them, and that's it. So that's why we do them. It's not because we have a good reason to do them. So again, dihina yediyah v'hasog be'elkus bam b'chinas tainuk v'gam b'chinas ha'oineg hakol hu b'chinas giluyim lavad the Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. When something comes into ta v'oineg, then it's giluyim, it's not atzmus. Well, hamshocha ha'atzmis or atzmus who on the day asiyah b'poel mamish, this comes about through Kabbalah's all. Dafka b'chinas Kabbalah's all malchus shamayim. V'noiden mikol makoim tzarich b'yos giluyim. True, you still have to have Giluyim, you have to have the Tamei Torah, you have to have the beauty of the Inyonim of Torah, you have to have Gemara, and you have to have understanding, you have to have Limud, for sure, that's true. But Noida, the Matan, the Mikomakom Tzarich Yos Giluyim, Gamken. Kmo Derech Moshel HaTzmicha, Shumin Aretz B'koyach Atzma. Right? The Indian of Tzmicha, so we said that there's a Sada, and then there's the Aretz. The Aretz is a Ratzois, she wanted to do, that's why it's called Eretz Israel. She wanted to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nevertheless, from Aretz also comes the Inyan of Tzmicha, right? Things grow out of land, they grow out of the ground. That growing out of the land is Giluyim from the land itself. It's Giluyim mitzad Kabbalos all. And there are certain Giluyim, and when we learn the Torah as well. Obviously, we have to, the Inyan of Giluyim is Limud HaTorah. מכל מקום כסיב, כאשר ירד הגשם, והוליד והצמיחה חולו. כאשר ירד הגשם, rather. והוליד והצמיחו. כמו הסגלוס המצווה, הוא על ידי התורה דווקא. The הסגלוס המצווה is through when the Torah is given. In other words, the Torah is given, all of these inyonim are given together with the Torah, אף על פי that the Ikka inyan of Torah is Kabbalas Omar Shamayim, but also the inyonim of Havonas of Torah comes together with it. כמו כן, בכדי שיהגילו דמאס המצווה, מצד עצמם, in order to be able to do the mitzvahs מצד עצמם, just because they are tzivur of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, צריך להיות מכל מקום המשוחס מד, תחילה. You still have to have the Inyan of Hamshochas Mad. What's Hamshochas Mad? Maim Dechurin. There has to be the Inyan Maim Dechurin first. What's Maim Dechurin? His Oirerus. His Oirerus of the Inyan. He'll explain a little bit more in a second. There has to be Inyan Maim Dechurin Tchila. Shezeu Bechinas Giloi Or. What's the Inyan of Maim Dechurin? Giloi Or. Maim Dechurin is Bepashtus the Inyan of the what the man gives to the woman in order to make her give birth. In other words, the inyan of the sperm comes from him. That's the ma'am dechurim, right? It's his oris milamaila, and then it's accepted into her womb and so on. And from that, the baby can start to grow. But you have to have that gilu or the gilu of the man's hashpor in order for there to be the possibility of birth. So he continues. And through Maim Dechurin, there's going to be halos man, Maim Nukvin, in the female aspect of it, the Maisa Mitzvahs mitzad atzmam, of the Maisa Mitzvahs mitzad Kabbalos all. But first there has to be his oiris milamaila in order for the mitzvahs to actually be to be accepted. In other words, it has to be sown. The mitzvahs have to be sown with the zera, so to speak, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order for there to be a tzmicha, in order for there to be mitzvahs, which we take upon ourselves in the aspect of Kabbalah soul. All right, so that's the way it is with Torah mitzvahs. Now he's going to explain that that's also the way, that was also Moshe Rabbeinu's kavona in sending the meraglim. V'zeu inyan shiluach meraglim. That's why he sent meraglim. Lasur es Eretz Canaan. He wanted to spy out the land, the land of Canaan. What does that mean? It means lahamshich bechinas hamshochas maim dechurin lo'oyer ha'aloa min ha'aretz chulu. Ha'aloas man de ha'aretz chulu. In other words, what did he want? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's intention? He's to seed the land, so to speak, so that the land would want Bnei Israel to come into it. Mitzad Retzoin Atzma, she would want, Eretz Yisrael would want Bnei Israel to come in. Why? Because the Meraglim were sent, Bebechinas Maim Dechurin. Right? Bebechinas Maim Dechurin, to wake up the desire of the land to receive the oil from above. But Tachas HaKavona hu Asiyah B'Poel Mamash. It's true that the Tachas HaKavona is the Asiyah, right? In other words, the land itself and the union of mitzvahs themselves. Shabazeh Dafka Yisro Or, because that leads to Yisro Or, Yisro Or Menachoshech. There's an advantage in mitzvahs ma'asis, dam b'kabolos all, over everything else, because that gets to the Atzmus. V'zeu shenikra Eretz Canaan. That's why it's called Eretz Canaan. The Tachas HaKavona hi hakniya. As we said before, the union of Canaan is kniya, is subjugating oneself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bekima mitzvahs b'poel mamash, accepting mitzvahs b'kabolos ol shamayim dafka. Shirak al yedei zeh, rak shalazeh, tarchiyos tchila hamshochas mad. In order to awaken that koyach, there has to be hamshochas mad. In other words, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu sent the Meraglim. The Meraglim was supposed to be b'chinas mad, b'chin of tzadikim, that would awaken in Eretz Yisrael the desire for mitzvahs ma'asis b'poel mamash. V'hina meraglim hayu b'chinas hasoga v'gilu atanu, but the meraglim went on that madrega. What excited the meraglim was the inyan of hasoga, the inyan of gilu atanu, the agad shmak in learning. So they wanted to sit in the midbar where they could sit and learn. They weren't interested in the mitzvahs ma'asis. The mitzvahs ma'asis was not their thing. So sending them into Eretz Yisrael to ma'oira the Eretz Yisrael for mitzvahs ma'asis isn't going to work. That was Moshe Rabbeinu's mistake. He thought that they were also holding by this high madrega of Kabbalah soul. They weren't. They were holding by Hasoga and Havona and Geshmak and Gilu Atainuk, etc. They were still on a madrega of his chalchus. They weren't on a madrega of his arvus. They weren't on the madrega of the Esesfris like Gnuzos. There were B'chinas Yischalkus. There was this mate, there was that mate, the other mate. Each one was a different madrega, different Indian. Ba'asoga, harayesh chiluka madregas. In Asoga, it's different madregas. That's why there was different shvatim. But there are klal, who's B'chinas Agilu, B'chinas Yischalkus. The Gilu generally is B'chinas Yischalkus. V'zeu inni v'yasura es haaretz. And that's why it uses the lotion v'yasuru es haaretz, but not v'yiraglu es haaretz. Right? Vayasuru. What's the name of Yasuru? Pish Vayasuru Roshan Yisroin. Yitaron, Yisroin. In other words, the whole point was to bring a Yisroin into the Aretz, that the Aretz itself would have the chayfetz and the desire to be makabel, the Indian of the mitzvahs, which is the Indian of Eretz Yisrael. Al pasuk lasur bebchinas lohoise bebchinas chochma. So wait a second. Al pasuk latur. Ulatur b'chochma. Yeah, I'm sorry. The pasuk in Midbar Rabbah that he talks about is, it says ulatur b'chochma. It's a pasuk in somewhere in the Nevi'im. In other words, what was the medrash say? Lohoise b'chochma, to cause an aliyah, a yisroin in chochma. Behind the kavonu hu yois mizeh ha yisroin ba'aretz b'chinas halos man. That Eretz Yisrael would come to halos man, a desire to receive the mitzvahs. It was given the koyach to become the b'chinas midbar. In other words, to become the b'chinas kabbalas all. Moshe Rabbeinu haya b'chinas ma. Moshe Rabbeinu was on the madrega of ma. He wasn't on the madrega he was on the madrega of ma. In other words, he wanted to be mamshich as ma to each of these inyonim in Eretz Yisrael. Ma ha'am, ma ha'aretz, what was the third one there? Ma ha'aretz, ma ha'arim. Right? He wanted to be mamshich the inyan of ma into all three of them. Moshe Rabbeinu haya b'chinas ma. Shelo ratza b'shum tainug rak ba'avoida tama hanal. Moshe Rabbeinu was b'chinas ma b'chinas bittul. He wanted to mamshich this inyan of mind to all the inyonim of Eretz Yisrael, all those three inyonim in Eretz Yisrael that we mentioned. Go and see the land. V'chashiv aretz, arim, v'am. And he counts all three inyonim, aretz and arim and am, and all of them are preceded by the loshen ma, because he wanted to be mamshich the ma, the Indian of bittul, the Indian of kabbalas, all into all three of them. Shein midbar, v'yishuv, v'sadeh. On the madrega of midbar, the madrega of yishuv, the madrega of sadeh, as we explained before. Eretz midbar, v'arim, makom yishuv b'nei adam, v'am, b'madrega pchuta, sheba hasoga hi ma'at chulu, u'b'kulam oimer ma. With all of them, it says the Indian of Ma, Shakavonish Yevachin is Bittel Da Midbar, because he wanted them all to be able to come to the Bittel of Ma, Bittel that Moshe Rabbeinu himself had. V'hameraglim lo ratzu b'hachnoah. But the Meraglim they didn't like this whole concept of hachnoah. That's for David HaMelech. They thought they were in a high madrega. It wasn't for them. This Indian of hachnoah, ubittel. They weren't so interested in this. They wanted the seichel, they wanted to be called Rosh Hashivas, v'chulu v'chulu. And therefore, they brought out, when they spoke about the Eretz Yisrael, they didn't speak in the most complimentary fashion. Kavonas Moshe, Hayal Yos b'chinas Bitul Hanalsh. V'shluach HaMeraglim hu b'chinas Hamshochas Mad. That's what he wanted, to see the earth, so to speak. Yos Halos Man, the Aretz Misad Atzma. In order to bring about this extra advantage in Eretz Yisrael, that was his intention in sending the Meraglim, to wake up the land to want Torah and mitzvahs in an oifen of Kabbalah Sol. Kitzer v'hine b'Torah yesh midbar yish v'sadeh yesh lama midbar primis HaTorah b'shorsham v'primis chochma de'es esfiris hagnuzos. The inyan of primis HaTorah, which is chochma versus esfiris hagnuzos. V'yin tanug atzmi habilti murgash. That's tanug atzmi. That's the inyan of midbar, and he's going to explain that again later on. Yishuv Torah Shabbat Yishuv is the inyan of nigla. V'sadeh kavonas hamitzvos. And field is the Indian of mitzvahs. And the truth is that the shorish of mitzvahs ma'asiyos is also b'kabbalas all is also the Indian of midbar. They were in Eretz Canaan, and that's why it's called Eretz Canaan, because that's what we were supposed to be, Eretz of Kniya. And Moshe Rabbeinu was under the impression that there first had to be the Hamshoch of Mad, b'chinas Gilo, in order to ma'orer. Talmud first you have to learn in order to be able to do, right? But the Ikka is the doing, but you have to learn first. That was his intention. And therefore he thought that sending him a Meraglim was going to add this quality to the Aretz, that it would have some limud, but it would also want to do the mitzvahs b'poel mamish u'b'b'chinas kabbalah sol. Okay, that's the end of that mimer, and Be'ez Hashem, next time we'll start with next mimer. I'm not sure. Next week already is Chanukah. We have to think if we want to have a class on Chanukah, we can. We could discuss it. So it's up to you guys. I don't mind giving it. We'll see.